Welcome to The Riff. Today on The Riff, Jeremy gets to sit down with the one and only Linda McAllister. They get to walk through Linda's story and, most importantly, culottes and knee socks. We hope today is helpful and hopeful. Thanks for listening.
Welcome, Riff listeners and viewers. And if you're viewing today, I want to, welcome you. And I want you to also notice my coffee cup has room for your sponsorship. So thank you for downloading, watching, accidentally clicking on this podcast. The Riff Raff is what we call our international collection of Riff followers. And I have a friend with me today. This is my friend, Linda McAllister. And Linda, I'm trying to think, as a matter of fact, let's talk about when we first met. I believe I met you at the fair.
Yes, you did.
Well, I met you at the fairgrounds.
It wasn't the fair.
Right? It was at a convoy event.
It was a Convoy of Hope event.
Okay,
right?
Now, so I knew you, I believe, now maybe this is just legend and lore, but I believe you were like helping oversee a sea of volunteers. Is that correct?
We had like 2,600 volunteers.
Tell us a little bit about that event.
It was the second time I was asked to coordinate that event. It was in June of 2018. It was amazing, and the way I actually really got to know you and started visiting North Point was I wanted to thank you for sending 400 volunteers from North Point and for the money that you also gave to help the event happen. I was just impressed with that, and I just wanted to come that next Sunday and say thank you.
And I saw you that next Sunday.
Yes, you did. And you were so great because you saw me and you looked at me like you were going to make me stand up and recognize me. And I'm like, so I so love the fact that you sense that I do not want to be recognized. Yes, that was awesome.
Well, but I do recognize you. I do recognize you. And since then, we've become dear friends.
Yes,
At least that's what I feel. Is it reciprocal?
Well, no.
Okay.
Well, I love your wife.
Yes. So that gives
love
me
your
an
wife. So that gives
advantage.
you, that absolutely does. Absolutely does.
And I love Mr. Colin McAllister, your husband.
I know.
And so he's actually one of my mentors, my bullpen of coaches.
Awesome.
And we hang out for breakfast about monthly to
yes, he loves it.
to talk. And we've gone to Israel together.
That was awesome.
That was a lot of fun.
Trip. I love that trip.
And one side note, we're going to go back October 2024. If you're interested, just give us why should someone consider going to Israel?
Oh my goodness. First of all, you read your Bible, you study all of these places where Jesus was, the disciples were, and to actually see it for real. And sometimes for me, the things that meant the most, it was like the Garden of Gethsemane was so quiet when we were there. There was no one else. And we did communion and we sang a song and it was magical. And then when we did the evening, we went on the Sea of Galilee.
Yeah.
And the quietness, and you could almost imagine how it might have been when a storm came up and when they were fishing in the Sea of Galilee. It just brings everything, makes it more real.
Yeah.
And then to see the baptism in the Jordan.
Yeah.
And to see the impact and hear the voices of people from all over the world, all of these languages, all there honoring and worshiping the same Lord.
It was
pretty powerful. Pretty powerful.
It was. We had a great time on that tour. Again, October 2024. We're going to do it again. And we don't have a lot of the details yet, but they'll be coming. So you can always drop us a line, or just keep watching. But it was fun to have that tour, but it's very fun to have you and Colin on that tour. And what I want to do, I'm inviting you here, is you're a gift to North Point. You, in the last, 5 years that you've been at North Point, you've been invested in this community. And today I want to talk a little bit about why and what we're seeing from some of this investment. And I love it. So we're going to talk about that. But I want to start a little bit, pull the string back a little bit more to even before we met. You are someone who's been in Springfield for a while. Did you grow up in Springfield? You got Florida connections too.
Yes. I grew up in Virginia. My parents moved to Florida my last 2 years of high school. And that's how I actually found out about Missouri, and there was a Bible college here. So I actually came to Springfield in 1970 to go to Baptist Bible College.
Baptist Bible College.
And graduated. Yes, I did.
Okay, so what did you think about Springfield, college town in the 70s?
I used to write home Springfield, Missouri, Misery. I had never been exposed to anything quite like it. I wasn't used to all the trucks and the caps. Everybody wore a cap, it seemed like, and it would spit tobacco out in the streets. So that was it was like the Wild West to me.
And you were from the coast.
I was from the coast.
Yeah, okay. Now, Baptist Bible College back in the 70s. See, I went to a Christian school, and looking back on my experience there, it was a lot more rigid. I would imagine if you look back in the 70s Baptist Bible College, would you describe it on a scale of 0 to rigid? Where would you put it?
It would be a 10 in rigid for sure. I mean, I got in trouble for wearing culottes and knee socks, and I had to take.
To be honest, I did too last week. Leanne didn't like the culottes. I thought they were tasteful.
No, I'm with Leanne on that one. Okay.
So so they're like, hey, that doesn't fly with our
Couldn't
dress
wear
code.
Couldn't wear pants. So I had to compromise and did the culottes, but it's kind of like a skirt pants. So got in trouble for that. And I think the demerits, I had to clean the bathroom with a toothbrush.
Oh my word.
It was disgusting.
I don't even think that's legal. That sounds like it could be a documentary.
Could be. The abuse. Oh my gosh.
So, okay, now I know you, I love you. I just I don't think of you as conformist. I don't just put you as, like, give me more rules.
Yeah.
But you survived it.
For some reason, I don't like to quit anything.
Okay.
So the fact I had committed to that, I had to stay with it. Okay. I had to finish it. And in my personality, when I start something, I start it, I stay with it. But now I've learned at some point to hand it off to somebody else. Yeah. I don't have to stay with it the whole time. Okay. College was just it was great exposure for me to different personalities and different ways that people live their faith out. There were a lot more piety than I was used to. Almost were I don't mean to be rude about this, but almost a self-centered. I used to use the term pious gas bag, and I felt like if I could just stick a pin in them and let some of that air out, it would be okay. Yeah. So my sense of humor, I think, got me through a lot, or maybe it didn't.
Well, okay. So backing up a little bit, what was your faith background growing up?
Oh my gosh, my parents got led to the Lord by a pastor and his wife who were starting a church in Virginia. Okay. I, as a young child, had always been taking myself to church. I went at first in 3rd and 4th grade with my best friend.
Why?
My grandfather died, and they took me to his funeral, and I couldn't understand why he was laying in that coffin and would not get up and talk to me. And it bothered me, and everyone kept saying, well, he's up there, and they kept looking up. And I'm like, up where? And they said, heaven. And so that night as we're driving back home to Virginia and it's dark and I'm the only child that actually took to the funeral because I was the only one old enough. And I'm just looking up there in heaven at the stars thinking, okay, Papa, you are up there. I'm going to find you. I'm going to find you. Wow. And literally, I started that journey of taking myself to church. For 2 years, I went to a Pentecostal holiness church, which was an experience.
Were they culotte friendly?
They weren't really culotte friendly. They a little more excited in their worship tendencies, and so that was a great experience for a young child. And then eventually, at some point, I thought, well, maybe there's a little bit different out there. So I walked a little bit further the next Sunday and went to a Southern Baptist church, and then got enrolled in what's called Girls Auxiliary. I was in 5th grade, and so it was Bible memorization. So I started memorizing all the scripture, and then in 7th grade, we moved out where it wasn't close enough to walk to church, and that pastor and his wife, Harold and Charlotte Coe, coming by to just talk to the people in the neighborhood, invite them to church. And Charlotte asked my mom if she knew where she would spend eternity. And my mother thought on that, and then she called Charlotte Coe the next day and asked if she could come over, and she led my mom to the Lord.
Wow.
And then little by little, everyone else followed. And so we went from a family that did not go to church to every time the doors were open, we went to church.
Wow.
So it was interesting, and my friends used to say, why don't you rebel? They won't let you go to homecoming dance. There was this new racket club that opened up, and they were having, high school dances. And they said, you can spend the night with us and go. And I said, it's not that I don't want to do that, but I remember what our family life was like before my family got saved, and I'm not willing to rock that boat.
Wow.
So I just stayed with those rules.
So you just saw a transformation in your
family. I
family.
did see a transformation. I really did.
So then you decide, okay, I'm going to go to Missouri to this Bible college. And you survive it. And I tease about that because I've been in environments where there's a purpose where they're very rigid for a season, right? But a lot of people get stuck in that. And so leaving that, there's a story of generosity that I'll never forget, and I don't know if this was the root of generosity or just a cool story of generosity that you experienced from community, from a church in Springfield. Tell us a little bit about
amazing.
About
it was
that.
1981. My first husband was on his way home from work, and an elderly woman thought she had time to make the turn, and she pulled out in front of him, and he unfortunately happened to be on a motorcycle. And so he hit her car going 40 miles an hour. They traveled down his spine, C5 para, no bleeding, nothing, no broken bones, but he never walked again. Wow. And we had, our daughter was 3 years old and our son was 5 months old. And that's back in the time when there was very little things that were accessible. His parents actually had an apartment, and they offered to let us stay there, and so we added a ramp to that. It unfortunately happened to be behind what used to be called Waddell's Market on College Street. Now, keep in mind, this is in the 80s before the downtown was revamped. Okay. It was an area you did not want to be at dark. So I would stroll my children during the day, but I made sure I was back in the apartment with the door locked at night. And I basically... you're just basically living in one room. And the stress of it, and I just said, Lord, could we just have a little more space? Can you somehow help just to expand the space? And that was my prayer. I didn't say it to anyone else. And that was probably back in August of that year. And then I get a call in September, October from Dr. David Cavan at High Street. And he said, I know you're really personal about things, so I want to test you on this and see and let you know to make sure you're going to be okay with this. He said, we have about 200 and some people showing up this afternoon at church who want to help you build a house. They heard that you had bought this little lot toward the College of Grand and Grant on Market Street, and you're trying to get the loan to build the house. And he said, they want to help you build it. Are you okay with that? And I went, oh my gosh, Dr. Cavan, that would be amazing. Thank you. And so they did. They built the house in 10 days. They did custom drapes. They landscaped the lawn. They got all of our stuff out of storage. They put a door opener on the garage door so the handicap van could come in and out. They paid the taxes for the year. They stocked the shelves with food. And then it was so graciously done, instead of a big brouhaha over the whole thing, they just came in and said a prayer.
Yeah.
And left. And if you need anything, let us know. And I remember it was the Brittons, it was the Fortners, it was the Johnsons, it was the Cavans. It was just some people I'll never meet again, but who gave so graciously to change and alter the trajectory of our lives.
Wow. So being on the receiving end and seeing community in that fashion, what did that communicate to you about God, about church, about community?
It's like that continued. There was a situation too where I didn't know where the money was coming in, and there was a bill that came due, and I remember praying, Lord, you don't want your people to go begging. I don't know how to pay this bill. I want to honor that. And literally, I got a card in the mail, and my sister had flown in from Florida. We're driving down the street. She gets the card and reads it to me. She goes, oh, it's from the Brittons. It's from Marvin and Tootie Britton. And I thought it was $20. I go, okay, now I only need $180 more to pay this bill. And she goes, stop pull the car over now. And she goes, it's $200, the exact amount I needed to pay the bill. Wow. It was things like that happened time and time again. And what that did was increase my faith and my prayer life.
Yeah. Wow.
He was there. He was in the midst of the valley. He was there. Wow. And he heard my prayer.
Yeah. Now, I got to meet you years later, where now you're positioned in a spot where you are funneling generosity through your time, your involvement. Your generosity was branded in your DNA,
absolutely.
Whether it was then or through a collection of things. And now years later, you are being a generous person. And so that's looked like what with different organizations?
Well, and I've learned you can never outgive God.
Yeah.
And that whom much is given, much is required. And he has continued to bless and bless and bless. And so we have always either, if I didn't have the money, I gave my time. And then as God blessed in the money, I would give money and my time. We are here almost every Wednesday night at the Springfield Dream Center. Yeah. It is such a blessing to see what is happening in this community, yeah, and the transformation that is happening, and see the changes in people who have been caught up in generational poverty,
yeah,
and to see what's happening in the transformation in the children. And in the behavior, I will tell you this, when it first opened, I actually volunteered to help with the kids. And after the first month, I went to Jody, who was executive director, and said, Jody, I'm not good at this. I will help you raise money. I will give you money, but it is not my deal, because the kids were so wild. And they would hit and jump on each other. And I was just like petrified of them. And now when you go in and see the kids who have gone and are in the academy, they're calm. If they come in and they're upset, they know how to calm the issues, not hit,
yeah,
not take it's unbelievable, just in the attitudes of the children.
Yeah.
And that just keeps continuing. Last week, there was the sweetest guy that came in, and obviously homeless. And I said, do you want to sit down? And he said, no, we have a dog. And I said, oh, okay, I can't bring the dog in. And I said, so how many meals would you like? And he said, could we have 4? I said, we'll get you 4. So I'm just trying to chat with him. And I told him what the meal was. It's hot dogs and green beans and a cookie and potato chips. And he goes, oh, I can't eat the potato chips. And I said, well, I wish I couldn't eat them either. I'd be well off if I couldn't eat them either. And then he said, well, I had 16 teeth pulled. And I went, oh my gosh, that's a lot. He said, yes, I was sepsis. I almost died. He said, this just happened like last week. And I said, well, it's a good thing you went to the emergency room. And he said, yes. And then he put his head down and he looked really sad. And I said, are you okay? And he goes, well, that's not the worst thing that happened. He said, my wife was hit by a vehicle on Kearney Street 2 weeks ago and died.
Wow.
And then he starts to cry. And I mean, that type of crying. And I just looked at him, I said, I didn't mean to make you cry. I said, I didn't mean to make you sad. And I just said, can I hug you? And he goes, yes. And said, I hope you'll come back next week and talk to us some more. It's things like that. Yeah. The old churchy Linda would have never hugged a homeless guy. The evolved Linda who realizes the grace and mercy and love of God and how Christ can transform and not have judgment, hugs the homeless guy.
Yeah.
And I think that's the lesson in just staying and evolving. I think that's the thing that drew me so much to North Point. On the side of the wall, it says, a safe place to find and follow Jesus.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, people say that, but is it really? And we continue to stay because it is. It is a safe place to find and follow Jesus. And I love that. All are welcome. Yeah. All are welcome.
Yeah.
Bring your burden. We don't judge anybody. We're not going to list your sins as you enter the door. We love you all. And that's why I stay.
That's awesome. Now, one of my favorite things is when a North Pointer, especially a North Pointer who says, man, I've got some background of spiritual development. I've been able to see God do some things in my life, and I want to pay that spiritual formation forward. And one of the things that I know you and Colin and others, but been very interested in is how can we help people who are hearing about Jesus kind of take help them take these next steps. We always talk about next steps, but some of these next steps are foreign for some who are new to faith. Mm-hmm. And we talk about groups and what do groups look like in 2023, or what does community look like, so we're just confident that it probably looks different than what I'm used to or what other people are used to, but we also believe in the power of community. Tell us a little bit about kind of this latest community group that you've been investing in the last year or so. How did it start? What have you seen and what's going on? Because you've really invested in a small group of people.
Oh my gosh, it's one of the joys of my life currently. I don't believe we journey alone. I think we always are meant to bring someone along. Either we are the encourager or someone's encouraging us. And especially in the faith community, when you have that circle of friends who will pray for you, will pray over you, who will correct you when you're moving in the wrong direction, or pray for you that you will move back to where you need to be. Not judgment, but always there to just encourage and almost that voice of reason.
Yeah.
And Leanne had asked me a couple of years ago, you should do a Bible study. And I kept putting it off because as I've aged, one of the weird things that happened is I developed anxiety.
Okay.
I've never had anxiety. I've never been a worrier. And literally my anxiety was over getting on I-44. And when I mean anxiety, the thought of driving on I-44 made me physically sick.
Really?
And so I put it off. I kept putting it off. And finally I could just hear God saying, it's just I-44, Linda. We've been through some bigger issues than this. You can do it. And so I prayed the whole way the first time we did the Bible study, and then I also even found a backup plan that I could drive all the way around to get to my house in Ozark. But I knew I was meant to do that study. I was meant to do it. And so I did with a lot of prayer. And then what came of that, and it's not because I'm a great teacher, it's just I've learned the importance of obedience. Yeah. If I've learned anything, I remember when I was doing a Bible study on Jonah, and I hated it, and I kept complaining about Jonah. I go, seriously, Lord, 4 chapters. He is a weasel. He complains about everything. All he had to do was just go to one city and repent. Really, how big a deal is that? And I remember at some point he said, Linda, don't you get it? You're Jonah. I called you to ministry. Instead of going to Nineveh, you went as far away as you could. And so that was 2015, and I felt God calling me back. And I said, okay, Lord, whatever you call me to do, I will be obedient and I will do it. And that's how the Convoy events happened. Because in 2016, they asked me to do their first event. Then they asked me to do it again in 2018. And then, of course, after the second event, I wound up at North Point. And then the voice saying, do the Bible study. With Bible study, I thought, if Leanne mentions this to me one more time. And so
she will.
She did. And so I was obedient. And it's been amazing. The women are I just can't say enough good things about them. We're as diverse as we could possibly be, different ages, different backgrounds, different careers, but they all are there because they want to know more about Christ. They want to have that reflection in their life so that others can come to know Him.
Yeah.
They're amazing. They're just amazing. I'm enjoying it. And I think groups are important. I think to journey with people and to share what God is doing in your life. And when people are down and out and they need that encouragement, you're there to pray for them, and they feel comfortable sharing in that community, because I think confidentiality is also very important in a small group, that people can trust you, that when they share something very sensitive to their heart, it stays in that group.
Yeah.
Because it's not our story to repeat.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's just amazing. They're just a blessing. We laughed last night talking about how eclectic we were and how interesting our topics are sometimes. Once the study is over, we're doing Ruth right now, but they all laughed and said, we look forward to it every week.
Now, I know for some people, if they find themselves at North Point and they feel like, I've heard some people say North Point is for a certain age, and I always resist that because I don't agree with that, because if that's true, then we will either keep growing that age or we'll age out. I think it's for a certain mission, right?
I agree. I agree.
But some people who might be at North Point feel like, well, I don't know that I can lead because I don't know that I understand or relate to everybody who's coming in, someone who's brand new in their faith or someone who has a completely different background as me. What would you say to someone who that's the obstacle that keeps them from diving in? Do you think that they can have some value?
Yeah. We're all called to ministry.
Yeah.
We're all called to ministry. If you have a voice, if you can write a letter, whatever it is, we all have the ability to share the love of Christ.
Yeah.
And even in this group, I'm like last time I handed it off to another person in our group, and she did an amazing job. Well, then I don't need to teach the class every time. And as I looked at them and we were going to continue a study, I said, I already know how to do it. I've already, but you need to do it next.
Yeah.
And to raise them up and to train them, all they need is a little bit of confidence.
Right.
And I think when someone does that, that's what prayer is about.
Yeah.
I've never walked into any situation where I felt totally confident I've got this covered. I've never felt that way. But that's where the prayer comes in, like, Lord, I don't think I have all the skill sets. I don't understand the people. I may not be able to relate, but for some reason, Lord, I'm meant to do this. So I'm just asking for your grace and your wisdom and for you to open the door and to lead.
Yeah. I love that. And I've seen a video, and I know that we'll probably have that video in different venues so other people will see it, but we've showed that recently in one of our group settings. But hearing a life story from a gal who's been in your group, who I think she even mentioned, says at first was like, well, I don't know that I relate to everybody here. But as she shares her story of how God used all these different individuals in her life to help her take next steps as a pastor, for me, I want every North Pointer to know is your key to influence is not relating, right? There's a time and a place for that. But as a mentor, it's helping someone take a step.
Absolutely.
And so if you're someone who says, man, can I invest in someone? I don't know what it's like in their shoes, or I don't know if I relate. I would say that's not a good eliminator, is you have a voice. And if you're at North Point and you're like, I don't know, can I learn from someone who's in a different stage or age than me? I'd be like, of course. We already know what it's like to have an echo chamber around
Absolutely.
us. It doesn't change us.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
So to be able to have, so I love that we have group leaders, we have people who are joining groups for the first time, and they're willing to give it a shot because I believe in the power of mentorship.
I do too.
Yeah.
I think even sometimes just the power of a smile.
Yeah.
Walking into church with a smile, and I know one of the gals that's in our class, she's a greeter, and her kids greet, and I look forward to seeing her on Sunday morning at the door, and her kids are so adorable. It's just, it seems something so small, but yet it isn't. It sets the tone, it sets the pace, and when somebody has a heavy heart, and they're entering that door with that heavy heart, and someone looks you in the eye and says, welcome, it begins to change that heavy heart.
Yeah.
People care.
Yeah.
People care.
Yeah. You have a very unique gift of hospitality. And I think people feel that in the room when you're there, in any setting. That's why you're such a gift on our Israel trip, or if it's at the house or anywhere, you bring that. And I just love that. About North Point. There's others who have that. Just say, hey, when you walk onto your campus, make it your home, make it your ministry, your opportunity. And okay, so I want to do some rapid fire questions for you as we kind of wrap up.
Here we go.
One side note: if you've not met the McAllisters and you go to the Springfield campus, just go to the second service on Sunday, about 4 rows deep in the center aisle.
True,
I can keep attendance based on where you sit. So,
creature of habit, he is.
But what I also love is lobby. It doesn't seem like you're in a hurry to get in or out. You're there. You're
I have
there
to hug
connect.
my friends. I have to hug my girls.
And so I love that. So go up, and they love surprise tickle fights. So just find them or just introduce yourself. But okay, tell us in 1 or 2 sentences why Convoy is a worthy partner of North Point.
Convoy's mission is to lift people up, to help people in need, and to give hope.
Yeah.
And they continue to live that mission out. And that's why they're worthy. They don't deviate from it. And I love even the things that they've done in their community events, which many times the people are homeless. They are treated, and one of the things they really instill in you when you're involved in it is these are our guests.
Yes.
They're our guest, and that's how you treat them.
Okay. Let me ask you this question. 1 or 2 sentences. What's your favorite part of, is it Church Council of the Ozarks? They got a lot of ministries. Council of the...
Council... No, you got me confused.
The East Division Street conglomerate of really cool things.
It is. Jamie Trussell is executive director. It's Council of Churches.
That's it. Council of Churches. Okay.
Yes.
They've got a lot of ministries there.
Yes.
Give us one of your favorite ones in 2 sentences.
Well, Cross Lines is one of my favorites because they have for 20-some years, helped feed people in need. And they do it very graciously. And I've actually had to take people to them at times who did not necessarily qualify, and they were wonderful to help them. They're foster care ambassadors for youth, where people who have foster children, you have the additional cost now of taking these children into your home, and they can go there and get outfitted in new clothes. I think they can get up to 3 or 4 outfits per season in their new clothes.
Yeah.
That's important. These are kids that are already having a difficult time. The last thing they need are hand-me-downs.
Yeah.
And they also have the prom closet, which is huge. So if they're going to the prom, they can have a gorgeous dress and shoes and jewelry. They've tried to take the stigma out of being a foster kid and make it okay, lift one of those burdens. And I love that. I love that.
We have a lot of North Pointers who are neck deep in ministry or on the team there.
Amanda Engel.
Amanda Engel.
Love her. We met
the
through
whole
Convoy.
culotte section at, I think,
Culottes and knee socks.
Linda, we absolutely love you and Colin. I'm thankful for the gift you are to North Point. And I just pray that anybody listening that you would say, man, how can I find my spot at North Point? You figure out what area of ministry kind of lights you up and get involved, because there are people on the other end who have no idea, but what you bring to the table will be the very thing they need to help take a step in their faith. I know you've done that for many, and so thank you for being a guest with us. Now, also, I'll say this is not your first media experience. Rumor is you used to work for the old KY3.
KY3, yes, the place to be.
Yes. Well, no, we don't advertise for others unless they're paid. So, but Riff Raff, thanks again for your undivided attention. Linda, a pleasure to have you on.
And you didn't call me bougie once.
No, but she is. Okay, now you brought it on. Okay, here's the deal. Linda is my most bougie friend. And so I call her Bougie Linda, BL for short. So you're welcome to as well. Hey, have a great rest of your day. Linda, you as well.
Thank you.
Bye, Riff.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.